Hello friends, let's discuss the next essay. Time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. Time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. This topic consists of a couple of metaphors. Repair the roof, sun is shining. What do these metaphors mean? Let's look into them a little closely. It's not difficult to find examples to substantiate this topic, but something which you might miss is to show their relevance to the topic, and to do that and to find even more accurate examples, it's required that we look into these metaphors a little closely. So let's look into them. Repair the roof and sun is shining. What does repair the roof mean? It could refer to certain tasks or some work that you have to complete. That could be with respect to yourself or of your family or your town, your city, the society, the nation or the world. There is this word repair. Repair, we repair something which is not in the right conditions, which could be either malfunctioning or there could be some other problem into that. So these work are not for merrymaking. These work are not for fun. It's not like a Goa ghum ke aana hai. But there are some problems which you must address. That is the central point. So the task that you have to complete before you run out of time, these are some important tasks. The next is sun is shining. Sun is shining means the situations are favorable to you, or till the time you have lot of resources. Sun is shining, that is conditions are favorable to you. And till when the sun would be shining? Sun won't be shining forever, that is for sure. Similarly, these situations which are favorable to you, they will not be favorable forever. Sooner or later the sun will set down, and similarly sooner or later these conditions would turn unfavorable to you. Also, sun can stop shining at any point of time, because you never know when there is a rainfall or some other weather disturbance. So in that unexpected scenario also, situations won't be favorable to you. So let us prepare for that unexpected scenario. Let us not wait for the situations to turn hostile. Let us do those things. Let us take those corrective measures before the situations goes out of hand, or before we run out of resources, or before we find ourselves in some really deep crisis. So this is the central idea of the essay. So basically, stop procrastinating, stop delaying. Whatever the issues are, look into them and solve them. Some proverbs are there in our culture which are very popular and which come very close to this topic. Like in Hindi there is a very famous दोहा, काल करे सो आज करे सो अब, पल में परले हो जाएगी बहुरी करेगा कब. It means in a moment there can be a crisis, then what would happen? So you could have mentioned that, and these proverbs you could have mentioned either in the beginning or in the body or somewhere in the end. And some more proverbs like this: a stitch in time saves nine, time and tide wait for none, make hay while the sun shines. Not exactly same, but somewhat close to it. Hit the iron when it is hot, prevention is better than cure, and so on. Don't mention all the proverbs, but just one or two you could have mentioned. Now let us take some examples. And there was this story of ant and grasshopper also, which you could have mentioned, where the ant used to collect a lot of food for the winters, and she used to store that, and the grasshopper used to make fun of the ant. So that story also, that anecdote or the story fable, you could have mentioned it, but no need to write the complete story and spend pages on that, because it is known to all the people, I assume, just like the story of Thirsty Crow. Now let us look into some examples here. One of the best example which comes to my mind is that of health of an individual. All these cardiovascular problems, or the toxins which start getting accumulated in our body, like fatty acids, cholesterol, or the problems of sugar like diabetes and all, these problems are relatively easier to address in when you are when you are in youth. But when you become old, your body's ability to cope up with these problems would be reduced. But still, in our youth, we don't address these problems. We keep delaying them to a point where a stage of hospitalization emerges or some other crisis evolves. So don't delay these things unnecessarily. Look into them. And also, you never know when situations turn unfavorable to you. That is, you never know. These days, heart attacks are taking place to young people also. And this diabetes is a very serious thing. It's said to be a silent killer. And these problems of diabetes and other lifestyle diseases, they are not limited to only elites these days. They are very common. Next is health of nation also. So just like during COVID, if you remember, between the different waves of COVID, we were preparing for the subsequent waves. So that is the theme which this essay topic is suggesting. Also today, just ask yourself, are we preparing or are we prepared for a new kind of virus? Not just new strain of COVID, but a new kind of virus which can transmit through new ways in far more rapid manner. Are we prepared for it? Are we really looking into our health care and the related infrastructure in a serious manner? You can't prepare doctors overnight. It takes many years to prepare a doctor, and it takes decades to actually build a hospital or a educational institute where you can train these doctors. So these long-term things, we need to be very careful. We need to be very concerned about them and start looking into them. Next example comes to my mind is that of biodiversity and conservation of species. There are many species which are on the verge of extinction. Once lost, they will be lost forever. It's not always possible to get them back from Africa like we got cheetah. And what if they get extinct there also? Should we wait for that kind of situation? Why can't we take the corrective measures and steps well in time to protect those species? And similarly, the point of halting the process of climate change. Climate change is for real. Recently, there were heat waves in London. And if climate continues to change, sea level continues to rise and drown our island and coastal areas, and if temperature rises and the agricultural cycles, they get upset, where would we get food grain then? At that point of time, would we be able to reverse the cycles? Would it not be a situation where people might start actually killing each other for food grains? Why are we waiting for that kind of crisis to develop, and why can't we take the corrective measures today? These are some of the ideas you could have touched. Similarly, you could have also talked about rainwater harvesting or measures to be taken for flood control. And here you can also give a positive example of the way we have brought up with disaster management plans and with this on our eastern coast, in the coast of Orissa, where these cyclones used to cause a lot of devastation earlier, but now the way we address them, we prepare for them, they cause less destruction of life and property. Another example is that from economy. In economy, you can talk a lot about this. You could get a lot of examples for this topic. And one of that is that we are still a developing country. We have still so much poverty and hunger in our country. And if we really want to become that golden sparrow, and if we want to become a developed country, then we don't have infinite time. Why? Because there is one thing which is soon going to end, which is not there forever. What is that? It is demographic dividend. So demographic dividend is right now in our favor. That is, right now majority of our population is youth. It can work in factories, it can do hard labor and so on. But sooner or later we are going to lose this advantage, because population would be aging. In a few decades our population would also start aging. The age profiles would change. At that point of time, that aged population would be a liability and not be able to work in factories also. So let us make the best use of this demographic dividend, invest in their skills or train them, provide them opportunities to work, engage their minds and their bodies in some constructive activities. before we lose these opportunities. That is before the night falls and so on. Next is the world of defense. Now it's a very important example here. Defense. Preparation for defense does not take place overnight, and some kind of challenge is bound to be there on either our eastern front or on our western front. So we need to be careful about that. In Doklam, in Galwan, when these confrontations took place, we can't always depend only on bravery and courage of our soldiers. Should not we supply them with the best of logistics? And for that, should not we construct the roads which can connect to the last border post? When the crisis takes place tomorrow, will we start constructing and building those roads and supply chains, and would we start buying Rafales or any other defense equipments in those days? It is not right. So this is why Rafales or INS Vikrant which we had, or other such defense equipments, we need to buy or build well in advance and not wait for the final war or some confrontations to emerge. And similarly, international relations. God forbid, but again, if some crisis takes place and suppose there is a voting to take place in United Nations, so will the night before that will we send our diplomatic missions in those countries to seek their support? Definitely not. So well in advance we need to invest on our diplomatic relations, strengthen these ties, increase our IFS workforce, our foreign services and so on, so that whenever situation emerges and whenever a crisis is there, we can get the support of these countries, not just America and Europe, but countries in Africa and Latin America and Asia and so on. Also, the way China is really becoming more and more aggressive, whatever measures which are needed, diplomatic measures between different countries, they need to be taken care more. They need to be taken in a more serious fashion, whether it is Quad or any other such thing, or like reducing our dependence on China. We need to do that before the China becomes such a big aggressive monster or dragon that it is impossible to control that. You can next give examples from the field of judiciary, where our justice system is not in the best shape. In fact, far from being best. There are 4 lakh, there are 4 lakh or I think 4 crore cases they were pending in the courts in our country. 70,000 cases are pending in judiciary alone. Now when we have made this justice delayed and is justice denied, we know, and we have made this this justice we have made such a difficult thing to achieve, are we not creating a recipe for a civil war or a rebellion or some kind of thing? What if people tomorrow they completely lose faith in judiciary, insurgency it erupts in different corners of our country? So would we on that day shake up from our numbness and our inertia? That will be too late. So let us not wait and sit idle for that kind of crisis, and do whatever we can to make our justice delivery system more efficient. Next point which is there can be discussed is related to social fabric. Our social fabric is weakening, is getting corroded. That is, the tensions between different communities are building up, and distrust is increasing between communities, and this is a recipe for disaster. In history we have seen how Pakistan it exploited the resentment against the Sikh community, and it propelled the Khalistani movement and insurgency there, and how it propelled insurgency in Kashmir also. So this our social fabric needs to be strengthened. We need to take it more seriously, and whatever factors which are contributing to degradation or corruption of the social fiber, whether it's hate speech or fake news or things like that, we need to address them. Next point which I want to talk about, and very important point, is our youth and the mental health of our youth. it's a point of grave concern that our youth is becoming addicted and intoxicated to social media. Our country has one of the biggest subscribers base for YouTube, for Facebook and Instagram and apps like that. We consume them a lot, and on these apps vulgarity is being spread without any limits. OTT platforms also, there is no censorship. Till recent there was no censorship over there. So all these apps which are promoting so much vulgarity, and our youth, which instead of singing songs like Arambh hai prachand bole mastako ka jhand, it is dancing on songs like Kacha Badam. It's getting morally, in a moral deprivation, it is sinking. What is happening? Tomorrow if a war or some catastrophe or some calamity takes place, what would we ask to our youth? We would expect our youth to take up guns, and the youth would say, no, we want to, हमें तो कच्चा बादाम पे डांस करना आता है, या कच्चा बादाम देखना आता है, या फिर PUBG, we are addicted to PUBG. So, or all these kind of things. Now Kacha Badam, I know the lyrics and the original singer were fine, but it's just what we made out of that song, and the way how we are reproducing vulgar songs and videos, and how we are consuming that. And these apps, these apps which produce content and they promote the content on certain algorithms in a very interesting manner. Many of these apps which emerge in China, what China does is, the algorithms which promote these content outside China are different from those algorithms which promote the content in their own country. In their own country, they would promote some content which create the abilities of their people, teach them something, or at least is not as dumb, is not as sensual as are in our country. So we are wasting our youth on that. We are wasting the mental capability of our youth, and the goals which these youth are setting for themselves, the self-realization of these youth is getting corrupted. Last year there was a topic, technology is used as a tool for self-discovery. So when these apps and these vulgar songs, they are used for the youth as a tool for self-discovery, then it's really a problematic thing. I think we could have also discussed this point. If you want, you can also discuss how relationships in the world today are people, they let them spoil and degenerate, and when the initial misunderstandings grow, they don't step in to resolve those misunderstandings, but let the doubts accumulate and snowball into such big quarrels which end up the relationships. So a lot of such examples can be brought in which talk about why we need to have certain kind of urgency with respect to the things which are wrong in our life, in our family's life, in the nation's life, society's life, and global world also. But beyond these examples, we should talk about some extra points also, some extra themes also, like why people fail to repair things in time. Why do they take time? Why do they procrastinate? Why this कोलावरी? क्यों होता है procrastination? So, like some ideas, like maybe they do not realize the gravity of the problems which they might have to confront in the future, or maybe they don't have sufficient resources. So even if they know, they don't have sufficient resources to tackle them. Or maybe it is human nature. Maybe procrastination is human nature, that people keep on delaying and they don't take action. Maybe because of inertia. Maybe because of some misinformation. Maybe they are not informed about the risks. Or maybe they are surrounded with some ethical dilemmas. So maybe they are surrounded with certain ethical dilemmas. And one more thing is that when a person's life is full of some emotional turmoil and emotional dilemmas they are facing, then also he get into a process of procrastination. So, well, no need to go in that much detail, but yeah, somewhere you could have talked about why people procrastinate, or why people fail to repair their roofs when the sun is shining. And then similarly, certain measures, or what can we do for that. like maybe we should provide them resources or whatever. But don't become too preachy. Don't extend this idea of providing solutions, because at the end of the day, this is a human nature. This is more about aptitude. This is more about attitude, our approach towards the problems, and not just some lack of resources or something like that. So these are some of the things you could have discussed. You could have also discussed some ethical dimension here, that we should help build the thatch of our neighbors. So let us not be preoccupied with building our own roofs, but also have some concern for those who could not build their own roofs. So in case if some storms or some rainfall or some calamity emerges, then let us help our neighbors also. Because there is this statement also, that no matter that there is a statement that man proposes, God disposes. So no matter how much we may plan for things in advance, but God and nature has always its own mechanism to outsmart us. They outperform us. They can turn the table upside down in their own ways, and they take no time for that. So when such situations arises, when such catastrophes arises, in spite of our best efforts and our best preparations, let us help each other. So that kind of shared or community feeling, or those ethical dimensions also you could have touched somewhere in this essay. So these are the kind of things which you could have written, and the time is running out, so a lot more can be written here, but I think this is sufficient for now. Basically this essay, as we said, what it says is that before the situation gets out of control, before your life collapses, or before it sinks to such depth from where it cannot be retrieved, get into action mode, come out of your numbness, reject the inertia which is withholding you, or stop getting intoxicated with the so-called joys of the world. Ki ye dekh lo, ye dekh lo. Don't be preoccupied with those activities. Have some kind of urgency. Don't postpone. Don't allow your life to become distressed to such a level that from where it cannot be, where things cannot be resolved. And let us have this wisdom that the resources which are available to us, the time which is available to us, the conditions which are available to us, they are not going to be there forever. Sooner or later they will turn hostile, and before they do that, before they turn hostile, let us do something to repair our roofs. Okay, so with this I will end it here. I hope this was beneficial to you all. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe the channel, and if you want to take benefit of the various essay programs which I keep coming up from time to time, then you can contact me, and the description for that would be available in the description box. Thank you all, and good luck.